So a comment I get over and over again on my videos and my live streams is, how do I get started on VATSIM? Now, speaking as somebody who put it off for months, mostly out of fear, but obviously now I wish I'd started way sooner, I figured I'd share with you how I learnt the ropes on VATSIM prior to doing my first flight. We'll run through how things work on VATSIM, the tools you'll need, and we'll also go through the communications you're likely to have with ATC when you finally make your first flight onto VATSIM. So let's look at how you can start by getting ready for your first flight on VATSIM without actually having to do a proper flight on VATSIM. First up, we've now got some very, very powerful ATC add-ons for Microsoft Flight Simulator. Two that I've used are Say Intentions and Beyond ATC. They're designed that you speak into your microphone and kind of have a back and forth conversation with their ATC. It's a great way to get used to speaking to ATC without having the pressure of being on VATSIM. If you're interested, I've done some videos on both of these ATC systems, including one where I did a head-to-head comparison between them both. So I'll pop some links in the video description for these. Another way you can learn is by doing an observer flight on VATSIM. So to get onto VATSIM, you'll need a piece of software called vPilot. And when you go to connect to the VATSIM network, you'll notice how there's a tick box that allows you to connect in observer mode. Ticking this box will allow you to connect to VATSIM, see and hear everyone on VATSIM on the frequencies, but they won't be able to see or hear you. So how is this useful? Well, a large part of my learning journey prior to going onto my first flight on VATSIM, I would go to map.vatsim.net. Remember that, it's important, you can use it a lot. I would pick an airport, see who's parked up waiting to go somewhere, and basically find someone to follow. Again, it's really important to remember you'll be able to see and hear them on the frequencies, but they will have no idea you're there, so you won't be causing anyone any bother at all. Then you follow them. It's a really good exercise as you can listen out for their call sign on frequency, listen to what ATC are saying to them, and think about what you would say back if you were doing it for real, and then kind of compare what the actual pilot says back to ATC versus what you thought you would have said. I think what finally gave me the confidence to do my first proper VATSIM flight was when I was doing an observer flight, I think at Gatwick. I was taxiing around, copying the taxi instructions of the person I was following, until they turned left, and I was like, oh, I thought we were going straight on. And I immediately thought, oh, I've obviously messed up because they know what they're doing and I'm obviously the new guy. And yeah, sure enough, I hear an ATC message to the pilot saying, oh, you were supposed to go straight on. Now, this was really great for my confidence for two reasons. First of all, I did the right thing and I was wrong to instantly assume that I was in the wrong. But also, even when that pilot did make the wrong turn, the one I was following, it was all okay. Like, no harm came of it. The pilot was calm, polite, apologised. The controllers were completely cool about it and provided revised taxi instructions based on the pilot's new position. Suffice to say, I can't recommend observer flights enough. It's a great way to feel like you're on VATSIM and start absorbing lots of knowledge without risking messing things up for other people. It's a really great idea. And finally, the other thing you can do is book yourself into a VATSIM First Wings event. These events are designed for people making their first flights on VATSIM. ATC coverage is put on by the controllers between two airports, and they're expecting people to make mistakes because it's their first flight. So it's a really great place for pilots to have a go on VATSIM properly, but in a supportive environment. So I think it's really wonderful that VATSIM offer this. So before you connect to VATSIM, either to do an observer flight or to do a flight on your own, we need to understand how the VATSIM network operates. Now, in an ideal world, it would be fully staffed the whole time, but the controllers are volunteers and presumably doing it for their own enjoyment, and as such, it's very common to find that you only have partial ATC coverage during a flight. A fully staffed ATC at Gatwick Airport would look something like this though. Starting from the bottom, you've got your clearance/delivery, who you'll speak to first to get your IFR clearance. Then you've got ground, who you'll talk to arrange your push and start and your taxi instructions. Ground will then hand you off to tower, who will give you clearance to line up on the runway. They might ask you to wait, and then they'll give you your takeoff clearance. They might give you takeoff clearance right away. It depends. Or if you're landing, they'll also be the ones to give you landing clearance. Next, you've got Gatwick Director, who tower will hand you off to. They control an area of airspace surrounding the airport, making sure that departures and arrivals are all being taken care of, and you're basically keeping out of each other's way. Then you'll be handed off to London Control, which is obviously a much larger airspace around London and kind of the south of England. But all of these controllers might not be online at once. So, for example, what if clearance and ground were offline? Well, then you'd speak to tower, as in the absence of clearance and ground, the next level up, which is tower, takes care of the responsibilities for those layers beneath. It can get a little crazy when there's like nothing online at Gatwick and Heathrow, but then London Control pops online, which then means London Control has to do clearance, ground, tower at both Heathrow and Gatwick, as well as monitoring and managing the rest of the London airspace. I've seen this only happen once or twice, but it is a huge amount of work on the controller, and it's quite something to listen to those controllers work. It's genuinely quite impressive. Now, of course, it might be that sometimes there's no ATC on, at all. And if that happens, you would tune your radios to a frequency known as Unicom, which is on the frequency 122.8, which is basically where you and all the other pilots are expected to communicate with each other by announcing your intentions and to work things out amongst yourselves. Now, if you're thinking this could lead to some crazy and ridiculous situations and overall chaos, then yeah, you're absolutely right. The other frequency you might notice when you're on VATSIM is the ATIS for an airport. ATIS stands for Automatic Terminal Information Service. In a nutshell, this is a looping broadcast, usually in one of those text-to-speech voices that gives you essential information about the airport you're flying in or out of, providing information about the weather, which runways are in use for arrivals and departures, and any other pertinent information. The ATIS broadcast is regularly updated. For example, if there's a runway change or if the weather changes, the ATIS information currently in use is given a letter designation such as Alpha, Bravo, Charlie. So if the information we are currently receiving via ATIS is information Alpha and then there's a runway change, the ATIS gets updated and then that will change from being Alpha to information Bravo. Over time, if there's another change, Bravo becomes Charlie, Charlie becomes Delta, and so on. When first contacting ATC at an airport, it's important to let them know that you have the latest ATIS information on board. So on first contact, you would include information Alpha on board, for example. That way, ATC know you're up to date. If Alpha has changed to Bravo and you hadn't realised, ATC would most likely take the opportunity to let you know. Now, for an ATIS frequency to be available and to have the information available, it obviously requires a real human to be on VATSIM and provide it and keep it up to date. So what do you do if there are no controllers online and therefore no ATIS? For me, I make quite a lot of use of the Flight Radar 24 app to see which runways are in use in the real world, and you can use that to kind of inform your decision making, or you can maybe work it out based on the wind, and you can also take a look at map.vatsim.net and kind of see what other people are doing on the network so that you can kind of fall in line and not cause a problem. It'd be really annoying to have people landing at different ends of the runway or whatever. Smaller airports, it can be quite obvious. Like at Bristol, you got 09 and 27, and depending on which way the wind's going, it's quite an obvious choice which one you should be using. But if you're at a bigger airport where there are multiple runways, Flight Radar 24 can be a pretty handy way to settle the debate. So let's talk about the tools you're going to need to get yourself onto VATSIM. So first of all, to get connected onto VATSIM, you're going to need an account with VATSIM. They'll also give you a few bits to read through, followed by a test to ensure you've understood it. It's nothing too heavy, but take your time, work through it, and you should be all right. You'll then need to download vPilot, which is the application that you use to connect to the VATSIM network. Before doing a flight on VATSIM, you'll also need a flight plan, and to do that, I recommend you use SimBrief. Pop in your airline code. This can be either real or fictional. Pick yourself a flight number, choose a departure and arrival airport, and you've pretty much done most of it. There's more you can do, but if you're looking for a quick in and out, this is really all you need to do, and you can click Generate Flight. Once you've generated a flight on SimBrief, scroll down and you can pre-file it on the VATSIM network. If you're doing your first VATSIM flight, you might want to put in the remarks that this is your first flight. That way controllers will see this and be aware of the situation. Fire your flight plan, and then you're good to connect via vPilot using the call sign you chose on your SimBrief flight plan. This will be a combination of your airline code and your flight number. Now, a quick word regarding SimBrief. You can have it generate flight plans for free, although on the free plan, you won't be getting the most up-to-date navigation data, which could be problematic and leads me on to my next point, Navigraph. With a Navigraph subscription, not only will it have SimBrief generate your flight plans with the most recent navigation data, you'll also have access to a comprehensive collection of charts. And if you're going to go onto VATSIM, you're going to need some charts. You can get free charts over on ChartFox, but they're not as up-to-date or as complete as those available on Navigraph. Before I was flying on VATSIM, I could get by with ChartFox as it was just me flying solo in the sim. But part of me committing to fly on VATSIM was also me committing to a Navigraph subscription. It's an incredibly useful tool. By having a Navigraph sub, you and the controllers should all be singing off the same sheet when it comes to having up-to-date navigation data and charts. Another tool I use a ton, which we've mentioned already, is map.vatsim.net. It allows you to see other pilots flying around on VATSIM. It also allows you to see which airports and which areas of airspace are under ATC control on VATSIM. Checking here before planning a flight can actually often inform where you decide to fly, because if there's no ATC coverage somewhere, you might decide to fly somewhere else. You can also zoom in on an airport and see where planes are parked, so you can make sure that you're not going to start yourself at a gate where someone is already parked, because that'd be really annoying if someone spawned on top of you, wouldn't it? So we've spoken about how VATSIM works, how you can learn, what tools you might need, and for the final part of the video, I wanted to run you through the communications flow that you are likely to experience on your first flight on VATSIM. Now, my VATSIM comms aren't perfect all of the time, they're a work in progress, but this general flow has worked for me so far. Let me know in the comments if you see in any way which I can improve. Though I will say, coming into VATSIM, I did find the radio comms to be probably one of the most intimidating aspects of it, almost like there's this constant pressure for you to be this infallible robot to give perfect radio calls all of the time. I did find a VATSIM comms cheat sheet on the VATSIM forums, which I'll link in the description. It is super, super useful. It kind of gives you a breakdown of what you should say at each stage, and it also tells you what to expect back from the controllers. Although looking at the comments on the forum thread where this cheat sheet is found, a lot of the comments can get a little bit on the nitpicky side, which again kind of adds to that whole intimidation aspect. What I will say, when I put my video up for my first VATSIM flight, I had a lot of real life pilots that are like, yeah, you did a great job, even though I made some mistakes. So like, we mess up radio calls all the time. So in the real world, by real pilots at real airports talking to real ATC, it's a conversation ultimately between human beings, so it's never going to be perfect all of the time. So while I would encourage you to do your best and to use best practices and to keep learning and keep moving forward, don't stress yourself out about it too much. Just do your best. So I'm going to play one of my previous flights on VATSIM now, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to kind of overlay it with some text to kind of give you some extra kind of context as to what I'm saying, why I'm saying it, and any sort of important information. We'll sort of step through all the different comms that I did on that flight to hopefully give you an idea of what you can expect when you make your first flight on VATSIM. But again, you've got to keep in mind that every VATSIM flight isn't the same. For example, you might take off from Gatwick having had ground and tower online, only to then be put on Unicom for the rest of your journey. It might be that there's tower online at your destination airport, but no ground. It might be there's ground, but no tower. So, I can't give you this is exactly what it will be like, but hopefully this will give you a bit of a general sense of the kind of stuff that's going to happen when you take a VATSIM flight. So I hope you find it useful. Leave a comment if you've got any questions. I'm sure there'll be lots of people watching that are also able to help as well. So if you are able to help, I would encourage you to do so and kind of just spread the knowledge and help each other out. So let's roll the tape. Gatwick ground, good evening. Air Not 121 at stand 567. Information Victor on board. Aircraft type Boeing 737-800. Looking for IFR clearance to Dublin.
And at 121, Gatwick ground, hello, clear to Dublin, Knockmore, next red departure, squawk 7323, QNH 101.
Cleared to Dublin on the November 1 X-ray departure, squawk 7323, QNH 1017, Air Not 121. Air Not 121, ready for push and start.
Air Not 121, stand 567, push and start approved, face south.
Push and start approved, face south, Air Not 121. Air Not 121, ready for taxi.
Air Not 121, taxi Quebec Alpha, Lima, hold short Papa.
Quebec Alpha, Lima, hold short Papa, Air Not 121.
Air Not 121, taxi Papa, hold short Juliet.
Taxi Papa, hold short Juliet, Air Not 121.
Air Not 121, continue taxi to hold Alpha 2 via Papa and Alpha Sierra.
Air Not 121, could you repeat?
Air Not 121, no problem, continue taxi to hold Alpha 2 via Papa and Alpha Sierra.
Holding point Alpha 2 via Papa and Alpha Sierra, Air Not 121.
Air Not 121, Tower now 124, that's 1230, see you mate.
Tower 124, 230, thank you for the ATC. Gatwick Tower, Air Not 121, holding Alpha 2.
Air Not 121, Gatwick Tower, Roger, hold Alpha 2. Air Not 121, hold Alpha 1.
Hold Alpha 1, Air Not 121.
Air Not 121, behind the departing EasyJet Airbus 320, via Alpha 1, line up runway 26 left behind.
Line up 26 left behind the departing EasyJet A320, Air Not 121.
Air Not 121, surface wind 280 degrees, 11 knots, runway 26 left, cleared for takeoff.
Clear for takeoff, 26 left, Air Not 121.
Air Not 121, No further ATC available. Monitor Unicom 122.8. Okay, good evening.
Unicom 122.8, thank you for the ATC, and at 121. Aha! That is Shannon Control, I do believe. Shannon Control, good evening, Air Knot 121, descending through flight level 210.
Air Knot 121, Shannon, hello, identified, clear direct LATMO for runway 28 left, descend flight level 150.
Cleared direct LATMO for 28 left, flight level 150, Air Knot 121.
Air Knot 121, descend flight level 90.
Descend flight level 90, Air Knot 121.
Air Knot 121, descend 3000 feet, QNH 1013.
Descend flight level 3,000 feet, sorry, and QNH 1013, Air Knot 121.
Air Knot 121 at LATMO, cleared ILS approach, runway 28 left.
Cleared ILS approach 28 left at LATMO, Air Knot 121. Dublin Tower, Air Knot 121, established on the ILS runway 28 left.
Air Knot 121, good evening. Surface wind 250 degrees, 9 knots, runway 28 left, clear to land.
Clear to land 28 left, Air Knot 121. Not
Air
the
Knot
worst.
121, welcome to Dublin. Vacate right and right Sierra.
Vacate right and right Sierra, Air Knot 121.
Air Knot 121, taxi whiskey 1, hold short runway 16.
Taxi Whiskey 1, hold short 16, Air Knot 121.
And Air Knot 121, cross runway 16, taxi hotel 1, stand 202. Have a good day. Correction, 203.
Cross runway 16, then hotel 1 for stand 203, Air Knot 121.